Welcome to part 3 out of 3 on the Racor fuel system upgrade. This deals with the replacement of the fuel line that goes from the fuel pump on the CAT engine to the input of the primary fuel filter in the engine bay. So the difficulty was getting this line out, which I'll go into in a moment, but the deterioration of the line is evident here. You can see where it's severely cracked in many places. So what I did was, just to check it, I put a plug on one end and pressurized it to about 60 pounds of PSI in a tank of water. There wasn't extensive bubbles, but you could see the odd bubble forming. And since this line is under suction and not pressure, and it's only about maybe 5 to 7 psi vacuum, I'm not sure that it would have been a major contributor to air into the system. However, the old wind system, of course, had a massive amount of air leak in it. However, the deterioration of this line, I think, is pretty severe, and it's something that should be changed. It was a really badly spec'd piece of rubber line. The line that I put in was perhaps didn't need to be this good, but it wasn't that much money. I bought a steel braided woven line, the type that was used on the secondary filter that CAT puts in. The thing to be very, very careful about if you put in field serviceable fittings, these lines are not bendable like in a rotation by 90 degrees, so you have to get that fitting exactly the same as it was when you took it out. And I believe they're about 90 degrees out of sync with one another. I didn't use field serviceable fittings. I had them made up at a hydraulic shop, and they didn't charge anything to make the line up. They just charged for the fittings. The whole line, it's in the parts list at the end of this presentation, I think was under $50 anyway, Canadian, which would be what, $30 US. But anyway, it's something that, although it may not be leaking extensively, the deterioration indicates, to me at least, it's important to change. The difficulty with this line and getting it out is, you can see in this video, or the snapshot rather, of the engine, is that the air intake is coming across the engine, and the line that has to be removed is the third line. Of course, it has to be the third one, right? On the bottom in a vertical series of lines. One of the mistakes I made that you don't want to make if you take this out is I did not have a plug for one of the lines when I did it, and I lost a lot of antifreeze. One of those lines is a coolant line. I think it's the one that is at the very top line. So I get some mechanism to plug it. I tried plugging it with just a zip tie in a bag, and it just leaked all over the place. Finally I gave up and just let it drain. But then you lose a lot of fluid like that. The third thing that was a serious problem, and took almost 3.5 hours just to get the line out, was I did not have a proper wrench for this. I needed a stubby wrench. I didn't have one, and even that, you really need almost a tappet wrench to get it in there. Underneath that, those other two lines, and unfortunately there was a braided line, electrical line of some kind, just right behind the bottom fitting. So that made it extremely difficult to get it out. I finally did, but it was one of the worst things I worked on in a long time. So when I went to put it back together again, it wasn't that bad, because what I did was I went and bought some stubby wrenches and was about to put it in. I found out, surprise, the wrenches I bought didn't match the fitting that I just had put on at the shop. It was 1/16 under. So I took fortunately I had a wrench for a saw, like a table saw. They're very thin. I just cut the end of that off. It fit perfectly, and I was able to put that on with a lot less difficulty. I wish I would have used that to take it off originally, but I didn't know about it and think about it at the time. So you can see here where I pulled the air intake line off, pushed it to the side, and then you can just different views of exactly the same thing here. So whether or not you want to do this, I guess this is just personal decision. The major leak was from the Racor, the WIN or Wix or whatever you want to call that thing. The original filter, as I said in the other presentation, it was only about 1/4 full. Now the bowl is almost all full. I still can see a few tiny bubbles, so I think the fuel line has got some deterioration in it from the tank. The list of parts is here. You can go through it. You can see there's special types of fittings. They flip back and forth. Some are National Pipe Thread, and some are these O-ring Boss systems. That's the ORB system. That's got a rubber ring around it. And then there's the JIC fittings. It's nothing exotic. It's simple to do. And I don't know, I think it's worth doing. And finally, there's just this picture. I think this is a guy that originally worked on the majority of my motorhome here. I just happened to catch his picture on the internet. So there it is, and good luck if you choose to do this. Well, there was one other final thing. There was a post on something I did on another forum, and somebody said that was expert in diesel mechanics, and he came back and said, you don't even need a Raycor filter. The cat filter is sufficient. It's got a water filter, and that is true. The cat filter is 2 microns, so it will filter everything out that's above 2 microns, and that'll protect the injectors, and it's a water filter. The problem is that diesel fuel is always dirty. From a truck stop, from anywhere you pick it up, you cannot determine the quality of the fuel. Not only that, but 2 microns is 2 millionths of a meter. You can't see that without a microscope. So if you just use one filter on this thing, then it's going to plug up very fast. And not only that, that'll reduce the flow to the injectors, and the fuel is recirculated through the injectors. It only uses part of it. Part is used to cool the injectors. So it's my limited experience would say you need a second filter. Now I have more than that, but that was because I wanted to discern exactly what was going on in this fuel system, and well, for the amount of work and time I put in, the extra few dollars was worth it. Okay, thanks for listening. Bye.